Today on In the House, I speak with John Garrett of John Garrett Design. John tells me his amazing story about how he found himself in the landscape business after getting his start as a sculptor and a chef. He walks me through his process on how he starts a landscape project and the many elements that affect the design. John talks about the numerous services he provides and gives his take on setting up a project for success. If you like this episode, please subscribe and share with a friend. Thanks for listening. Elevate your construction projects with trademarks. Durable, waterproof vinyl markers that stand up to the toughest conditions. Perfect for accurately marking locations for electrical, plumbing, HVAC, and other essential elements. These heavy-duty markers won't wear off or move even under heavy traffic. Available in various shapes and colors, they ensure clear, professional communication on the job site. Streamline your layout process and maintain accountability to architectural plans with trademarks. New customers enjoy 15% off at checkout. Visit trademarklayout.com to get yours today.
But I'm interested in your background. You had mentioned to me that you didn't actually get your start in landscaping or landscaping design, but you were an artist or a sculptor, right?
Yes, I went to school for sculpture. I studied sculpture at the New School at Parsons.
Okay.
And that's what I thought I was going to do. You know, I moved to New York when I was 17 with $1,300 in 2 suitcases, and a bouncer, a doorman of a club, had told me that I could crash on his couch until I found a place, and I did it.
Yeah,
I moved to New York overnight.
Why sculpture?
I don't know. I was just really drawn to giving, at the time, used materials a job again.
Okay.
I don't know why, but I was into like using like chassis and fenders and old, windshields and things like that, and putting them together and giving them a job again. I just found some satisfaction in that. And then, but I was always into art as a kid. I was kind of that strange kid that was just reading Interview magazine when I was 10 years old, and I was just fascinated by art and that whole Andy Warhol world, the whole like factory in New York City. I wanted to be a part of that when I was a kid. I had a punk rock babysitter, so that's probably why. That's probably how I got into that kind of stuff instead of like
punk rock babysitter.
Yeah, instead of like soccer practice and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
She turned me on to a lot of art and music and things like that. But I don't know. I was just really into art when I was a kid.
I feel you. I mean, my sister, she's much older than I am, but she's a phenomenal artist. She does like sketches and paintings, and she's went to school for it as well. She's very talented, and growing up, I was always around that, like my sister, and being watching her, and I think that's kind of what gave me a interest in it. I mean, obviously I didn't like pursue a career in it, but I've always had that. I was always being out in the garage tinkering or building. I made my own spin art machine out of it was a Lazy Susan, and then I took a electric motor and I just kind of rigged it up to where it spun the Lazy Susan.
Perfect.
And I would attach a canvas to that and just spin it really really fast, and then I would do my paint on that, and that. I mean, that was like, high school, junior high. Like, I was always in the garage doing something crazy. But how do you go to school for sculpture? How do you teach? It might be an odd question, but how do you teach that?
Well,
I mean, isn't beauty in the eye of the beholder?
It's all subjective. And,
okay.
Whenever you go to the New School, the first year you just draw in pencil. You don't do anything except for that. It's all about drawing, perspective, and things like that. Then the second year you get to work with some metal, but they had me working with sheets of stainless steel, and didn't find any inspiration in it, and I was really kind of upset about it because I had worked so hard to get there, and then it's just that.
Why stain? Was there a point to that? Like, what was the?
I don't know. I didn't stick around to find out.
Okay.
I left the new school and went to the School of Visual Arts. I figured that it was a much more sort of loose curriculum. They let you be creative instead of like, it was just very difficult to be creative in that environment. And so I went for a couple of years at the new school, and then a year at School of Visual Arts. And then I just thought, I'm spending all this money on school. I would really rather just have a studio to try making some art in, because it hits you. It hit me eventually that it doesn't matter if you have a piece of paper at the end of the day. You're either a good artist or you're not.
Right.
So
yes,
go do it. And so I just figured I'd go try it. And I made some friends. These brothers, these Dutch guys, bought a 5-story warehouse in Harlem.
Wow.
At 125th and Park, and this was 20 years ago. It was still dangerous back then and all of that. And they were interior architects. They built concert stages and fashion shows and trade shows on the piers and all that.
Okay.
So they told me I could have a corner if I did spot welding for them, and they just never asked me to do anything for them. They were just being generous.
Yeah.
I was like 20 something, and they were just helping me out. It was really, really, really kind of them.
Nice.
And it was amazing because the first floor of that building was an auto body shop. And full
perfect.
of junk cars.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and the elevator in that building was big enough for a box truck to pull in and go up and down. And
wow.
So I could just drag stuff in there and take it upstairs. And those guys, they had one rule, and that was if you went up there, you had to leave before dark because it was pretty dangerous.
Okay.
But after dark, they would give me a ride on their motorcycles.
Okay.
So I tried to stay after dark all the time because it was so awesome to just come out of that elevator on a motorcycle in Harlem and go 90 down the West Side Highway. It was amazing.
That's like what you see in the movies.
Right. And it was the best way to see New York City. I'd lived there for years and had never looked up. It's weird. You forget that you're in a canyon.
Yeah.
But it's the best way to see the city, and I had a lot of fun with those guys.
That's cool.
But I had my first show while I was working in that space, and that went really well. It was just one piece, but the gallery owner held it over for a couple months, kept my piece for a couple months, and then he was like, okay, you got to come remove this. And I was flat broke.
Yeah.
It cost me all my money to make the art. And so he was like, we're having another show coming here tomorrow. I need this out tonight, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it was about as long as this table. It was about 12-foot long piece of old Chevrolet that I had made into a bull's head. I had a rope from the piers tied around its face, and it was beautiful. It was really cool.
You still have pictures of it?
Somewhere, yeah.
Cool.
But I had to pull that thing out. It was in the space was in Dumbo, down under the Manhattan Bridge overpass, and it was empty at the time.
Yeah.
And it was like a ghost town of warehouses back then almost. So I get down to the street. The super gave me a little pallet with 4 wheels on it. And I get the thing in the elevator, get the thing down to the street, and there's 2 cops just parked right there having lunch. And I was just going to leave it on the street. So I'm wheeling it down the street, and I find a construction site. And I asked the guys if I could give them $20 to use their dumpster. And they fought over the $20 bill and threw the thing in the dumpster for me. So I found it in the trash and it went back to the trash. I guess it was kind of its full circle of life for my first piece. But
wasn't heartbreaking at all to see that, or
not really?
No,
I kind of felt good about it.
Okay,
I was glad I had the opportunity. I was just glad I had the chance to do it.
Was that your primary source of income, or did you have a?
No, I put myself through school as I was a chef at a small luxury hotel.
Okay.
Up there, part of Relais Chateau, all that kind of stuff. It was a 12-room bed and breakfast in Gramercy Park.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny how I got that job. I was doing room service at the Four Seasons here in Austin, the overnight shift. And when you work at the Four Seasons and they have a guest that's there for like a month, you're assigned to them. Like you're their waiter, you're their valet guy or whatever. And so I was this girl's room service guy. And she was just a few years older than me. Mm-hmm. And she was really cool looking, like dyed black hair and blue nails and like red high heels and just this like sort of like really cool looking chick from New York City. And so I loved, bringing her tea and pizza every night. And then my 1-year vacation from the Four Seasons, I went to New York and ended up just moving there overnight, like I mentioned.
Okay.
And didn't know what I was going to do, but I went out and I got 3 jobs the first day I was there, and I took all of them.
Wow.
2 coffee shops and 1 stock person at a stationery store.
Oh my gosh.
And I was whittling them down to the most hours or whatever. And it had been about 5 days of me being in New York City, and she walked in the coffee shop right up to the counter. The girl that I was
no kidding,
the waiter for here for a month. Yeah.
Did she recognize you?
Yeah. She was like, "What are you doing here?"
Oh, that's cool.
And I was like, "I just decided to move up here and be a starving artist." And she said, "You have to come work for me and my mom. We're opening a hotel." And I was like, "Absolutely not. That's, I didn't like working at Four Seasons." So I held out for a long time, and a long time was probably about a month and a half of me taking the PATH train to Jersey City at the end of the night, like trying to get my way, move into the city and all this, and commuting and 3 hours of sleep and opening and closing shops and stuff like that. And I finally went and met her mom, and I didn't understand that it was a 12-room bed and breakfast. I thought it was going to be like another
like a big hotel.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it's just like these 2 brownstones that they had connected, and at the time they only had 8 rooms open. But another funny thing is that I went in to interview with the mom, and I'm wondering if I am even going to get this job or whatever. And I go in there, and she is this lady that had come to the coffee shop every day, and she was in a t-shirt with a coffee stain down the front, but and a big Hermes coat and Chanel everything. Like she owned half of Chinatown, but she didn't care if she just had coffee all over her, And so, but she would just come in. She came in and sat in the corner of the coffee shop and just watched me work all day. And I just thought, this is a crazy New York lady that just does this,
Oh, no kidding.
But she was, checking me out the whole time. And it was kind of funny. So
that's crazy.
By the time I got there, she just said, I walked in and I was wearing combat boots. And I was not dressed for an interview. And I was just walking through the neighborhood. And I said, the first thing I said was, please excuse my shoes. And she said, "You're hired." Okay. She was this really awesome, big, brassy, New York Jewish lady, blonde. And man, she cursed like a sailor.
Really?
I thought I had a foul mouth. And she was hilarious.
Really?
Yeah, she took me under her wing, and she was pretty much my mom when I lived in New York for the 10 years I was up there. And Yeah, so I was the chef for her. She had put it out there with her publicist. This is getting way off of landscape.
No, keep going. Keep going. It's the backstory to the landscaping business you're in now.
Well, okay, you can cut as much of this.
No, I'm not cutting any of it. Let's keep going.
So she wanted to open an afternoon tea salon and this Victorian bed and breakfast. You know, every room and every dish she's gone out and to upstate New York and collected at estate sales. It's all, there's nothing cookie cutter about the whole place. And, her publicist, Eric Asimov, at the time, had put the word out into New York City that this tea salon was open. Yeah. And it wasn't. And he was one of the like top food critics for the New York Times. So he called for a reservation, and the tea salon was the first floor of one of the brownstones. Like it was 2 rooms with pocketed doors. Each room had a fireplace, and then all the furniture was just upside down with sheets all over it. And so she said, "Take the reservation." We took the reservation, and she called all of her friends, and she had me go to Balducci's and Dean and DeLuca and Richard Chocolate, all of the best stores in New York City, to buy each course. It was a 5-course prefix tea.
Oh my God.
So I just went to the best places in New York City and bought the best food.
Yeah.
And all of her friends came in and had like tables of 2 and 3, and everybody's in fur and diamonds acting like they don't know each other.
Oh my gosh.
And he comes in and gets his table of 1, and I serve him his prefix, his 5 courses, and the next day we had a half page in the New York Times rave, and we were open like that day.
Wait, but y'all you didn't make anything.
No.
So how was that? How did that work? How was that?
Day. I mean, the tea was at like 12 and 2:30. There's 2 seatings, right?
Okay.
So I start running around New York City at 9 in the morning, getting everything from all over.
Oh my gosh.
Like just going to all over the stores and just buying everything.
That sounds insane.
I was 18. And
wow.
I had the energy.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just kicked it off, and then she brought chefs in to teach me how to make each course one at a time. So eventually I was able to be the chef there.
Oh, okay. So so eventually you just learned how to make the things you were buying.
Right.
Okay.
I just learned how to make that.
That's wild.
And
so you're a pretty good chef now.
Well, I like to cook for myself. I don't like to cook on a time, time restraints or anything anymore. But I mean, I thrived on it. We actually beat the Plaza Hotel for the 6 years I was the chef there. And the Plaza is the only other place that had the #1 tea in New York City. So we had the #1 tea for the 6 years I was there. And that was pretty cool.
That's insane. That's such a crazy story.
Yeah. And so working there is where I met the brothers, the Dutch guys.
Right, okay.
And they lived in the neighborhood.
So you're a chef kind of all while you're going to school too, right? Mm-hmm. So this is all kind of happening at the same time, and then you meet the 2 brothers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then I just start doing stuff. Like instead of waiting to do stuff and drawing in pencil and doing pastels and everything like that, I just got to do stuff finally. And that's when it actually worked. I got this, like the first thing I did got held over for a couple of months right where I put it.
Yeah.
And I just,
So how long after that, I mean, so you did your first sculpture that eventually wound its way back into the trash. So after that, if we pick up there, what happens next? Do you still do sculpture? How do you get from there to landscaping? Okay. Let's make that connection.
So, let's see. So one thing I fell in love with while I was studying sculpture and while I was up in New York was this place called Storm King. sculpture garden, and they have humongous sculptures that, you know, like 2-story calders and just like everything. Andy Goldsworthy and Noguchi and Maya Lin and Tinkley and Robert Smith and all kinds of amazing stuff. It's humongous scale sculpture. It's not something for inside.
Gotcha.
And it's acres and acres of rolling hills. You just go up there with the lunch and just walk around all day.
That sounds amazing.
It's one of the best places on earth. It really inspired me to do what I do now. That place did. And so I eventually, I moved back here a year after 9/11. I lived really close to the towers, like 10 blocks when it happened, and went through all that. New York City really changed.
The country changed. That was such a wild... That's another discussion, but...
Yeah. I moved back here, and a restaurateur actually paid me to move here to help him with a restaurant here.
Okay.
And I did that for a hot minute. And then my family always had a real estate company in St. Louis, and so I just tried my hand at that for a hot minute. And then I didn't like it and didn't like that. And then I was just trying to pay my bills. I did not want to get into landscaping. I didn't want to start a business or anything. And I answered an ad on Craigslist for a guy that needed his yard cleaned up. And I just wanted to pay my rent.
Yeah.
So I answered the list or the thing. And his place was a disaster.
Yeah.
It was all pea gravel with weeds that were 7 feet tall, solid through it.
Oh my gosh.
And he wanted the pea gravel clean. And
oh Lord.
Then there was the whole rest of the place, So, but I mean, I am a hard worker. I learned how to work my ass off in New York City.
Yeah.
For 10 years, I was just coming from there, and I just got in there and I did a really good job at it. And he said, I'm a landscape designer. Do you want to get on the crew? And so I said, sure. And so the crew was all Hispanic. They were all related, uncles and cousins and everything like that. And none of them spoke English, and I spoke zero Spanish.
Yeah, yeah.
And they hazed me hardcore.
Really?
Yeah. But they saw eventually that I could work as hard as them, and then I was also outworking them. And then the guy who hired me had a drinking problem.
Okay.
And so he started to kind of like not get out of bed till 2 p.m. So by then I'm doing the estimates and the designs to get us all out the door so we can go make some hours for the day.
Yeah.
So then the whole crew was like thankful I was around because I'm keeping them working. And then, one day the guy just woke up at 2 p.m. in his house and like came to the office, the bedroom that was the office, and leaned against the door and was like, and he said, are you ready? And I'd been there since 9 o'clock doing stuff. And I said, I was just like a little taken aback, it's 2 p.m. I've been ready since 8. We all have.
Yeah. Right.
And and then like right after that, he was laughing to me the next day about how he had watched the sun come up. And the guy was like 50 and I was like 25. And I was just like, this is really sad. It was just really sad to me. It was like sloppy, you know?
Yeah.
So I just said, you know what, I'm out. I'm just not going to work for you anymore. And I don't know what I'm going to do, but it's not going to be anything here.
Yeah.
And so I left, and the guy was, he was really into public humiliation too, which was another fun thing.
That's rough.
Yeah. Like, at clients' houses, he would say, like, what's the botanical name of this? And I'm green. I'm learning
yeah.
plant names like from this guy. And I said, I don't know. And he'd say, oh, it's a podocarpus. And then like laugh at the people, like try to get the people to laugh at me with him. And they're uncomfortable and I'm uncomfortable. And the guy's just not.
Sounds like a nutcase.
Yeah. Not really there.
Yeah.
And so I quit. Mm-hmm. And then this older couple on the east side, the Moorheads, they did not like the guy that I was working for. They liked me. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we
the crew.
Yeah. But, oh no, we hadn't started at their place yet. We were talking, we'd been going to their house to talk design.
Okay.
So, and he like told them that like the boards on the wall were shiplap when they were clapboard. And, and like they were telling him, no, it's not. And he was like, no, you're wrong about your house. And they were like, no, you're wrong about our house. And yeah, it was just odd. And so anyway, they, tracked me down and said they wanted me to do it and not him.
Yeah.
And I felt really, really weird about that. I didn't want to start my journey that way.
Yeah.
By, you know, like getting a client from someone else or from my former employer. And
yeah.
I said no forever. And they eventually said, look, if you don't do it, we're just going to have to open the yellow pages. So we're not having him do it.
Yeah.
So will you do it? And I was just like, okay. So, and that was the first big job I did. And it was just me and my best friend on the weekend, whenever he could work with me on the weekend.
Yeah.
And I just did it by myself all week. And then, so that's how it started out. It was just me doing my best for any job I got, whether it was a flower bed at a $150,000 house or the landscape at a $2 million house. Like I always try to do my best no matter what's going on, because I just feel like that's how the universe kind of gets you from A to B, is doing your best, and you're rewarded for it. So that's,
you know, where do you begin? You know, when you first start off on a landscape design, whether it's, you know, an existing house and they're just looking to, you know, freshen something up, or if it's just a complete blank slate, like where do you start? What's your process? What are you thinking?
Well, it depends on what the objective is for the job. You know, if it's a blank slate, or if it's a redo, if it's a make ready or whatnot like that.
Okay, let's say hypothetically, I mean, we're talking about, you know, this is a new build. You're starting with a blank slate. Where do you go?
Inside the house and look out, and also talk to the clients, the owners.
Okay.
So the first thing I do is, first and foremost, I try to flatter the architecture. The architecture is not going to get up and go down the street anytime soon. The clients might. So I flatter the architecture, and then I try to emulate the client's personality.
What do you mean by flatter the architecture, and how do you do that with landscaping?
Well, like there might be like a New Orleans type style architecture we recently did. And so there are a lot of ferns and boxwoods and magnolias and holly and things like that. Okay. Whereas, like if they wanted a Japanese inspired landscape, we did a lot of plants that are common in Asia. We're on the same latitude as a lot of Asia, so a lot of Asian plants work here in Texas, and we can bring them over and use them that way. Okay. There's also some things that, like crab apples, certain varieties of crab apples are beautiful. They look like cherry trees, a lot of them. So we would, bring some of that in. So if there's kind of a farmhouse type effect, that's going to be different from sort of Iron Man looking house, right. So I gotcha. It depends on the architecture there, and then Also, I try to keep things proportionate to the size of the buildings.
Okay.
I think one mistake a lot of people make all the time, and maybe people don't think it's a mistake, it's all subjective, but is doing little dainty things around humongous, megalithic type structures. Large structures I think look better with large, bold movements, if it's color or swaths of things or whatnot. You kind of get like a little bit of a Rothko sort of painting going sometimes if you have your color and texture blocking with your architecture and things like that.
I see. So okay, that's interesting. You go inside the house and look out. That's definitely not a perspective that I considered. Was actually what are your views from the inside of the house, and how can the landscape improve on that? Or how is it gonna affect it? You don't want to put something that's going to block your view, certainly. So that's a good perspective. Yeah, I didn't consider that.
Yeah, and stone too. If like windowsills, a lot of times are marble, so you might want to use a marble out in the landscape. Or
you use boulders a lot, don't you?
I do.
That seems like every picture that I've seen of your work, there's boulders everywhere, and it's beautiful, really. I mean, it's
thank you.
I love the use of the rocks and the large boulders. Like it looks phenomenal. When you're starting, what makes a project successful? I guess from the beginning, like what are you, other than budget, let's say, like what needs to be in place? Either I'm speaking even as a builder. What does a builder need to do to set up a landscaping project to be successful? In your experience.
One thing is, a lot of times by the time the landscaper comes around, the budget's already been kind of squelched with.
That's true. Landscaping is usually like the first on the chopping block.
We're like the bastard child at the end of the day. So we get what's left most of the time. And that's if we can maintain that. It's like because we might be thinking we have what's left, and then the steel guy comes back in and needs another $100,000 of steel work done.
Yeah.
So we take what we can get to start with.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. But a lot of times I do what I design two different ways. I do what I call the gold star version, which is where I do a consultation with the client, the builder, or if there's a builder or whatnot. And then within reason, I pull out all the stops on the landscape so that no one can come in behind me and suggest something better, faster, stronger, whatever. I pull it all out within reason. I'm not going to, put a Ferris wheel somewhere. I'm not doing something ridiculous.
Sure.
But I'm pulling out all the stops within reason, and I pull all of that together, and that is the best way, I think, to find a budget.
Sure.
Because what we can then do is I present the design, we discuss it, we make any changes, and then I estimate it. And it's all line item very meticulously. It's just as transparent as can be, so that we can sit down and say, what don't you want?
Sure.
And then they say,
we could do without this, or we could change this.
Or we want it all.
Sure. That's the ideal. Yeah. That'd be the best response.
So it's not as easy for people to say what don't they want or what they do not want, as opposed to what they do want.
That's smart. Okay.
So it's what don't you want, and then we find the budget that way, and then the other way I design is, and a lot of times it's whenever people are just selling their house or something like that. They say, we've got X amount of money for curb appeal, we need to get out of here, or I've got the family coming for the holidays. We need to get the backyard and this part ready, and blah blah blah. So there's that. But normally normally people want to see what I come up with for the whole for the whole idea.
Yeah.
And then we decide to phase it or do it all in one fell swoop. And I am a huge advocate of phasing. I've done projects that have been phased out over 5 years, and I love those projects.
Yeah.
Because every step of the way we get to do it right. I love it. We don't have to rush, or we don't have to do any phase on a shoestring. And, you know, it comes together beautifully in the end.
You have your own crew. What all do you provide? Like, what all services do you do? Can you do like decks or water features, pools? I mean,
well, no, I don't install pools.
Okay.
I can design pools.
Okay.
But we are a one-stop shop for a lot of house managers, basically.
Okay.
So like one house manager put it great by saying we're one neck to choke. So, you know, they don't have to call the irrigation guy and the lighting guy and everybody. They just call me,
right?
And we take care of all of it. So if I don't actually do this, we do steel work, we do irrigation, we do lighting and all that. A huge steel project. You know, I'll get one of our welding friends to do it, but I know the best guys in the business. I've worked with the same subs for the 20 years I've done this.
Yeah.
Actually, this month is 20 years that I've done
That's
this.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Well, congrats on that.
Thank you.
That's no small feat.
No.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
Yeah. And I got put out of business really close to it with this like car crash thing that I had.
You had a car crash?
I had a really bad.
Really?
Yeah. In 2018, I was in a car crash. First time I bought a sedan.
Uh-huh.
And I got T-boned by an F-350 in it.
Oh my.
But yeah, all of the
driver's side, like right.
The whole car was smashed except for like 17 inches and the driver's seat.
Oh my gosh.
With airbags. It was a little A6. So stupid to even try to drive that thing. But anyway, yeah, I was internally decapitated.
Oh man.
Yeah, C1 through 4 shattered, and then all the ligaments connecting to my skull were severed.
Gosh.
So I had a 1% chance of living for several days, and
wow,
I had to lie in bed for close to literally 9 months, but it was more like 12. I am not a patient person, but I learned a lot about patients. I had to lie in bed for 9 months.
Oh my gosh!
There's a titanium plate on my skull, and my neck is titanium rods.
Oh my gosh!
I didn't think I was gonna ever be able to dig a hole again.
Really?
Yeah. They didn't know if I was going to walk. I mean, I wasn't gonna live for several days.
So you're laying in bed. I mean, could you move? Like, did you have control of your limbs, or were you
eventually
regained that?
Yeah, and it was
that's wild.
Yeah, I was told that I could be a paraplegic, and I was told that I should have died. But the doctor actually said it was doing this work that probably saved me, because I had such like good internal muscles in my neck.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. You're in good physical shape, so you were able to handle it.
Yeah, but 9 months in bed, and I can solve any crime. I watched every single forensic file out there.
I love forensic files.
I watched all, I think, 27 seasons.
Oh my gosh.
And then, oh my God, except for the arson ones, those are boring.
Oh.
But yeah, no, I didn't think I was going to be able to dig a hole or plant a tree again. I didn't know what I was going to do.
But you were determined to get back at it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And as soon as I could, a crew guy's dad built his retirement place out on out in Marble Falls.
Okay.
And he built like a 9,000 square foot house out there, and he hired me. You know, I just, as soon as I think it was probably about the 11th or 12th month, something like that, I just put on a neck brace and just hooked it on out there. I had to, you know, pay the bills, right?
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, fortunately, that was a really long job. Like, just thank God I got out of bed and was able to do a job that lasted for months, you know. So that was a blessing. But and then after that, it's just been one big job after the next. Still, just back on the horse. But
that's great.
I mean, I didn't know if I'd ever be able to work out again. Like, I was really big into working out back before then, and you know, like, I still have chronic pain, but it's at least, you know, I'm 6 feet up, you know, above ground.
Yeah.
But
I can imagine.
But yeah, like I'm just so happy that I can do this still, because it's what I love. It's you mind over matter, man. Yeah.
And thank God that I guess it happened the way it did. I mean, you know, I'm sure there were a lot of lessons learned through that, and it's changed you.
It was a long road for sure. There's no such thing as bad weather. There isn't. You know, it's weather.
Well, what is it? You know, the trees that grow up with the strongest wind, you know, have the toughest branches, kind of a deal. I don't know.
You got to get back up every time. I agree with you there.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask one question, and then we can wrap up. But if you could change one thing about the construction industry, what would it be?
Everybody would have an unlimited budget.
Amen.
Yeah.
I wish that were I wish that were so.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
No, if there was one thing I could change about it, aside from that, I think that, you know, it's unfortunate that so many people get a bad name from just a few people out there, you know. So I don't know.
What do you mean? What are you referring to?
Well, like sometimes they'll go to a prospective client's house and they're gun shy because they think I'm going to knock a hole in the yard and then say it's $10,000 more than I actually estimated it. And people do that. Yeah. And so I would take those people out of the game, I think.
That's good.
Yeah, because they ruin it for everybody that's out there trying to do cool stuff.
They certainly do. There's certainly a lot of contractors that do the same damn thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember, especially here in the city of Austin, like during COVID, you know, everybody was renovating their backyard or their pool. There was a lot of pool contractors who, they would do that. They would go dig a hole and then they would just leave and they'd say, well, you know, we need a 50% deposit or whatever on a $200,000 pool. Or more, and you know they'd take the money and run.
I've heard of that too.
There was a rash of it here in Austin. I mean that happened a lot from what I understand. And you're right. I mean there are some bad apples out there, and it does kind of, you know, one bad apple spoils the bunch, as they say. So
yeah, there are some weird ones out there, but yeah, if we could remove the weird ones, it'd be nice to just work with people that
actually
great work ethic and like what they do, and
that give a damn,
and don't want to sweep things under the rug or cut any corners. I think everybody would be a lot happier.
Amen. I'm behind that 100%.
Good. All right.
Yeah. Well, John, hey, it's been a pleasure. I mean, I've really enjoyed talking with you and hearing your story. So I appreciate you coming on, man.
Well, thanks for asking me.
Absolutely.
It's been fun.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
All right.
Thanks. Appreciate it.